Well, hello and welcome to Fuquay-Varina United Methodist Church. My name is Owen. I'm one of the pastors here, if we haven't had a chance to meet yet, and we're glad you're here. We know that life can get crazy, and sometimes we have to find time to worship during the week, and so we have crafted this worship opportunity just for you. We know, nothing's perfect, but whenever you're worshiping and wherever you're worshiping, we're glad that we can be here worshiping together. If you are with us for the first time or you'd like to let us know you're here, if you just got questions we can follow up with, we'd love for you to text us, send the word hello to the number that's right here at the bottom of your screen. We'd love to get back in touch with you as soon as we can to see how we can connect or help solve whatever it is that you've got for us. So don't hesitate to reach out. Also, if this is an opportunity that you regularly participate in and you'd like to partner with us in mission and ministry, we'd love to have that partnership with you as we serve our greater community here around Fuquay-Varina. You can go to our website, fvumc.org/give. And we'd love, again, any sort of support that you can offer will help us continue to do this and do it well. And so you can check that out while you're there. Anything that you need, hopefully, will be right there on our website. Particularly if you're looking for other worship opportunities, you'll be able to see those on our worship page. And again, we're just so glad you're here, and we hope that you find something meaningful, something you can hang your hat on this week as we participate in worship together.
Sometimes on this journey, I get lost in my mistakes. What looks to me like weakness is a canvas for your strength. And my story isn't over, my story's just begun. Failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does.
Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Oh yes, oh the Father's house. Come on home, come on home. Prodigals come home, the helpless find hope. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Prison doors swing wide, the dead come to life. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house.
Well, we've been asking what it means for us as a church, as individuals, to scatter the goodness of God like glitter all around our community and the places we live, work, and play. And today we're going to begin the work of wrapping all of this up. I asked someone earlier in the week if the way we've been talking about generosity and what it looks like for us to participate generously in the work of the church by our financial gifts, if it's been clear. And they said, if I've been here every week, it's redundant and boring and I'm starting to tune you out. But if this is the first week, then I'm listening. So I don't know which of those two categories you find yourself in. But here's where we are. Here's where we are. 99% of the financial resources that it takes for our congregation here to do its mission and ministry every year, 99% of that, over 99%, comes from those of us who call this place home, whether we're worshiping in person or whether we're worshiping online. And we would love to invite you in this coming year to participate in that work. The tangible output of that is hopefully many, if not all of you, received one of these in your house. If you didn't, in the mail, reach out to us. We'd love to get you one. Inside, you'll find an estimate of giving. And this is if you intend to make a generous gift in small parts over the course of the year, or however you choose to do that. If you're intending to do that for 2023, it's super helpful to the leaders of our church as they make plans, as they put together a budget for the mission ministry for next year, to have a sense of what that's going to be so that we can make wise and faithful projections and make wise and faithful decisions. We are in the process of collecting these so that we can do that work in the next few weeks. So our hope is by this coming Sunday that all these will be in, and we've planned an added Sunday, for those of us who like to procrastinate. And so technically you have 2 Sundays. This is the last Sunday. Technically you have 2 Sundays. But if you have some questions about this, we'd love to help you out. 2 things to point out. And again, this is particularly for those of you who have not been with us in the last few weeks. On the back, that you're going to see that there's 2 opportunities to participate. One is in the annual mission and ministry of our church. And the Goodness Like Glitter thing that came in the mail talks a lot about how what the last year of our church has looked like, talks about some of the ways that we spend that money. Again, you can check that out there. This year, we are also launching Revise, Refresh, Renew, which is a 2-year build as you go capital campaign designed to update and upfit our existing facilities within our current building footprint. And so we're encouraging you to participate however you would like to in that. Now, reminders. 1, it makes no sense to have a big, beautiful building if you can't do mission and ministry in it. And so we are asking as clearly as we can, if you're planning to give, we would just encourage you to continue to give at or above the level that you've been given towards our mission and ministry budget. If you feel that there's something over and above that you can do, we'd like to invite you to consider over and above giving towards Revise, Refresh, Renew. We have been offering a couple of different sessions to help answer questions. So we'd love to still get those questions answered for you if you can. All of the information in those sessions is on our R3 website, fbumc.org/R3. And you can download a copy of this. It's got all of the why we're doing this in the front half of it. And the second half of it, you're going to see 11 prioritized projects that we intend to accomplish over the course of the next 2 years. Again, we're not going to move on to the next project until we have 80% of the funding in hand to be able to afford that project. So we're not trying to take on a bunch of debt as we go through this, but we're going to work through it over the course of the next 2 years. So you'll be hearing about this. But I would encourage you to go and look at all those projects. Some of the projects are intended to revise our building. These projects will move some walls, create some new types of space within our building to make it function in a way that we're currently using our space. As an example, making some larger spaces out of a bunch of smaller spaces, which tends to be how we're using things today. And we are getting ready to create some of the most sought-after scheduled spaces in our building by doing so. I'm convinced of that. Secondly, we're going to be refreshing some things that have fallen out of disrepair, some things that just need to be refurbished, particularly with an eye. The first would be an eye towards like discipleship and mission. This would be with an eye towards hospitality and first impressions, welcoming people in. And then the third category is kind of the renew category. And these are things that just need to be repaired or replaced because we live in a 23-year-old building. And after 23 years, some things break. And so you'll see all those projects listed in here in a prioritized order. This has been the work of leaders in our church since even before I was here. I would say at least since 2018, the summer of 2018. In fact, the first time that I can find the words revise, refresh, and renew stitched together in one place, it's in some meeting minutes from the summer of 2018. And next to those words is the name Rick Dupree. And so I asked Rick to come and just chat with me a little bit since he can't be in all places at all times. He's been doing this work for 15 years. And I invited him to sit down and just share with me so that we could share with all of you guys what it means for him, like where he sees us now compared to over the last 15 years. And what he's hopeful for. So I wanted to share a little bit of that with you now. This is an edited down version. You can see the longer version on our R3 website if you'd like to go see the full interview. But here's just a snippet of it. It just feels like you've been working on this forever, right? And here we are, it's 2022. I'm sure it feels a little good for it to be happening, but also, man, it also feels like it took forever. So I'm just curious, how that sits with you, and how you're feeling about all of this.
Well, I'm very pleased that we are where we are. This summer, I took a Bible study class with Adam Hamilton, and it studied the Lord's Prayer. And of course, the verse that's in the Lord's Prayer is, "Thy will be done." And "Thy will be done" is not just what He likes done, but also when He wants it done. And I reflect back over the years, and for me, I'm just thinking maybe about 15 years.
15 years worth of work? Yeah.
Involved in this process. And the various stages that we got to that said, okay, we have this, we know what we want. And yet at the end, there was not consensus that that's what we needed to do. But in all these processes, we came upon many things that we all could agree upon. So we came together with this campaign of Reprise, Refresh, and Renew. And we went to church council, and I think it was in 2018.
2019.
2019. And they said, yes, let's do this. But then God said, not now. Not now. I got something happening. And it was COVID. Well, COVID made everyone look at our space in a different way. And I think now, as we come out to the other side, we're ready to hit the ground running. We know that we can do it. We know that, in my opinion, it's God's time. We have a clear vision. We have a clear commonality, and I think we're just ready. I think it's God's time. There's always items. There's always issues. If you don't see them, then you're not looking. But I think that we're prepared and ready for it. I truly believe we'll be fine.
When it's God time, it'll work.
It'll work.
Yeah.
If we follow God, and I want to say this too, if I might, through all of those years, and all of those trials and tribulations, I knew there were some strong prayer warriors, and God was with us. So it's time. It's time.
Well, thank you for taking your time to come and to make space for this, and we appreciate it. So thanks for all your work over the 15 years, and I know that you certainly did not do it by yourself. There've been lots.
No, my gracious, no.
Lots of leaders strewn along there with you, but thank you for today, and thank you for that good work that's brought us to just this moment at just this time.
Yes, sir. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, everybody. It's great to be together with you today. We're in our last week on goodness like glitter. We've been talking for the last few weeks about what it looks like for us to scatter God's goodness like glitter in all the places that we live, work, and play. And we're going to be wrapping that up today. And we're going to begin our conversation today in the 15th and 16th century world of cartography. Now, I don't know if all of you have brushed up on your history of cartography later, but here we go. In the 15th and 16th century, there were some radical changes to the world of the map maker. Map makers in that time, and this is right around the time of like Christopher Columbus and Magellan, and folks were exploring out into places that they'd never ventured before. And we see that reflected in the maps that get made. And so map makers began to leave large swaths of area on the outside of their map, uncolored in, undrawn in, right? They were just blank. Up until that point, if we didn't know what was out there, we either drew the boundary of that map tighter, or we filled in blank spaces that we didn't know existed with legends, that tells you what's on the map, or sea monsters, wherever we don't know what to go there, we just put a sea monster there. But at that time, people, it was like they became really comfortable with the idea that they didn't know what was there. It was like, we don't know what's there, and that's actually okay. It's actually good. We want to go out and explore and figure out what's there. It wasn't something to be feared so much anymore. All of us, when we learn, we tend to kind of go through the same sort of process. When before we've learned how to do something new, we exist generally in a state of unconscious incompetence. We don't know what we don't know. And living in that reality can be kind of nice. We used to say, ignorance is bliss, because when you don't know what you don't know, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to be concerned about it. But when we want to learn something new, when we got to press into a new thing we're learning, whether that's a practical thing like tying your shoes, or whether it's a spiritual thing, we have to step out of an unconscious incompetence, and we have to press into a new season of conscious incompetence, where all of a sudden we come face to face with the reality that we do not know how to do what it is that we're trying to do. And that's a very, very uncomfortable place to be. It's a place that produces a lot of great anxiety. And sometimes people, when they get into that spot, they opt out. They want to go back to the ignorance is bliss place because it was just easier and pleasant and wonderful there. But if we're willing to sit in that discomfort long enough, and to trust the one who's teaching us the new thing, if we can press into that, eventually we bear fruit on the other side of it. We become people who can now do things competently. We have a conscious competence. We know how to do it. Maybe we don't do it well or perfectly at first, but at least we know how to do the thing that we're doing. And if we do the thing that we're doing long enough, then it becomes an unconscious competence. Almost like it's second nature. We don't even know how we do it anymore. We just do it. It's easy breezy, and we just kind of do it without thinking about it. Now, again, that can be a practical thing. But all of our lives are intended to be this kind of cooperant grace, this growth in grace. God wants us to continue to grow and to develop. If you've ever experienced this, maybe you know what I'm talking about, like in a personal sort of way. But sometimes I feel like God convicts our hearts through the power of God's Holy Spirit and presses us into a new thing that God is doing in the world around us, something that God is calling us to do, maybe a way in which God is reshaping or reforming our heart, our minds, our attitude towards God, our attitude towards others, our posture towards the people around us. And sometimes when that happens, and we try it out, it just feels hard or heavy. It produces anxiety and discomfort. And so I think that sometimes folks opt out. They go back to the old life before God convicted their heart, because that life was fun and having all sorts of wonderful things and nobody cared what you were doing. But when our hearts have truly become convicted by the love of God at work in our lives, we want to respond to that by stepping into the fullness of the life that God has in store for us. And if we're willing in those moments to press into the discomfort of that season, great and beautiful spiritual fruit, spiritual breakthrough, life that is real life, the life that God intends for us, exists on the other side of that season of discomfort. What I've really started to wonder lately is if there's not also a sort of a function in the lives of those, and I'm thinking about myself here, I'm thinking about others, not just myself, who once you have kind of some spiritual breakthrough, we become so comfortable in this unconscious competence, like the fruit of the work of God's love in our lives has changed and transformed us. And so we just want to kind of stop there, because that's beautiful and that's wonderful. We become very comfortable with the way things are. We become very comfortable with the people that we know and intersect with, and with the patterns of our life. And when confronted again by some sort of convicting spirit of God, we actually don't want to keep on growing. We don't want to enter back into that time of conscious incompetence. It's too uncomfortable for us. And so we kind of want to hold back. We kind of want to hold back from there. Much of what Paul writes, it is scattered like a thread all throughout his letters, through the parables and the teachings of Jesus. We see over and over again in Scripture what it looks like for us to be called to continually grow, to continually step into those moments where we're out of our comfort zone, when we're in a place trusting that God, in the midst of the new thing that God is doing, is going to bring us through those discomforting times so that we can see more spiritual fruit sort of born in and through our lives. When we resist it, it's almost like we want to shrink our map again, or we want to fill in the edges of our life with pictures of scary sea monsters that really just represent the anxiety that we have about the discomfort that we would feel if we had to go back to admitting that we don't know everything. Now, that can be an intensely individual experience. That can be a spiritual experience. I think it can also be a collective and a communal experience. And if I'm real honest, I think that collectively and communally, we're in one of these seasons together right now in our place in history. I do not understand today. Today operates in ways that I am very unfamiliar with. I understand a world and a church that has existed for the better part of the last 100 years. Not only do I understand it and sort of am steeped in it, but I have been trained to be a participant in the world and a leader of the church in a world, in a church that has existed for, like I said, the better part of the last 100 years. I don't know that I know how to be a participant in the world or a leader in the church for the world in the way that it's becoming. It's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to think about that. But I just, everything's just moving so fast. Like I don't always know that I understand. What I know how to do is to take known solutions and apply them to known problems. And a leader is called to do that quickly and efficiently. The challenge that I'm seeing is that most of the known solutions that we've used, at least for the last few decades in the life of church or world, like those solutions are no longer solutions for the challenges that we're facing in the world and the church in which we currently today are living and moving and having our being. And sometimes I find myself just really kind of pressing back against that and being so frustrated. It's like I want to shrink my map or I want to go back to a place just like, let's go back to the way it was. That would be so much easier. And I find myself just like screaming at the television or yelling into my iPhone at Siri, who maybe should magically have an answer for me or a solution to the problem that we're facing. I want to go back to a time where I knew a solution to every problem that could arise. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily possible. And I'm not super confident that that's what God's calling me to do, or maybe us to do. Some people adapt to new things in new ways more easily. Some people are much more comfortable sitting in that place than I am, I think. My son, who's 7, was telling me about a woman that he saw on TikTok. And I became very panicked by that. I said, well, how, why, where, how did you even get on TikTok? How do you even know what TikTok is? You have no phone and no device. I was like a little bit frustrated by it. And then he said, well, Go-Go showed me. And then I became more confused and afraid. Why is my 72-year-old mother on TikTok? Like all of that is just anxiety producing for me. Hope loves it because she's been trying to get me to do some TikTok dancing for a while now. It's her life mission, I think. Some people are much more comfortable, right, navigating new spaces, TikTok or not, right? All sorts of new ways in which our world is currently operating today. I think when we're pressed or challenged, I might suggest convicted to step forward into a new thing that God is doing, or to trust that God is doing a new thing as the world is changing and transforming in front of us. There really are two responses that I think we can make. And I say that not to create a false binary where one need not exist, but just for the sake of argument for our time together. So hopefully you'll just give me some grace there. First, I think that we can choose anger and frustration and resistance to anything new that we don't understand because it creates too much discomfort, too much anxiety. And we can kind of carve out our happy little silos of the way that things used to be back in the day when we understood every problem that could go with every solution. Or we can sit in sort of an open-handed posture, confronted by the discomfort of the moment, and trust that A, God is perfectly well suited to lead us into this next season, and that B, there's a real possibility that we will come to understand more of ourselves and more of who God is if we hang with God through the discomfort of that process. I've been thinking about these choices, and in particular about the story of a man named Noah. You may know Noah from the story of the ark, where God sent a flood into the entire world, and Noah put his whole family and 2 of every kind onto the ark. They went on the boat, twosies. They came off in threesies. How about those birds and beesies? If you grew up at church camp, maybe you know that song. I suspect that many of us, even if we didn't grow up in church, are familiar with the story of Noah. And at the end of it, God set in the cloud a rainbow, promising us that God would never destroy the earth in that same sort of way again. And And as I've kind of grown into my adult self, I've started reading that story, and I've got so many questions about it, and we could spend obviously several weeks talking about it. But one of the things that I want to highlight, and I think in the conversation that we're having today, comes in like a really short aside that I think I've read over a number of times before, but never really stopped to process it fully, because it feels like a transition sentence, right? So Noah comes off the ark, builds an altar, praises God. They have some worship together, and then they begin the work of repopulating the earth. God has made the covenant promise through the rainbow with him. And then as it's transitioning to the next part of the story, it says Noah, I'm in chapter 9, verses 20. Noah, a man of the soil, was the first to plant a vineyard. And again, at first glance, this is just getting us to the story that follows, which is about, it's about Noah drinking too much wine, if you want to know the truth of the matter. But it's just a transition sentence. Oh, he was a farmer. He planted a vineyard. That's great. But here's the thing. It takes, in the best of scenarios, 3 years before a new vine can grow a grape. And if Noah's the first one to plant a vineyard, I suspect there was some trial and error early on, and it took time to cultivate the plant, to cultivate the soil that it was planted in. 3 years. And this is what I'm thinking. If you'll just sit with me for a second, kind of in this passage. I mean, again, in the course of less than 2 months, right? 40 days and 40 nights. In the course of less than 2 months, Noah has just watched from the window of the ship the entirety of the known world destroyed in front of him. Underneath the turbulent waters and waves of the flood, he has watched every building we've built, every wall we've erected, all the things that we put up in our world, castles and homes that are institutions that are intended to protect us against the chaos of the world, to lure us into a sense that we can provide and protect it for ourselves. He's just watched every single one of those things just absolutely obliterated, washed away. And the first thing he chooses to do is to plant something that A, takes a full 3 years to grow, and B, will hopefully outlive him. That is a lot of trust in the future in a world that you've just seen erased in the course of 2 months. But it's like he trusts the promise of God in that moment to stick with him through this season. In a world that he no longer understood, he drew a map with no edges. And in a season where conscious incompetence was all there was in front of him, it was a statement of faith and God, a statement of trust, a prophetic sign act saying that he believed that what he did would last, despite all the evidence to the contrary that he's just witnessed. Friends, the world around us is changing. It's changing at a different pace than I've ever seen before. I cannot understand it, and I cannot keep up with it, right? That's where I think I am. I suspect that's where many of us are. A lot of what we have known about the world has been erased by the turbulent waters of changes in our politics, changes in the natural world around us, changes in the world order of things and how power gets shared around our globe. And I've been asking the question, like, what is our faithful response in that moment? For Noah, it was to plant a vineyard. So what would it look like for me, for you, for us, in this season of unknowing, in this season of new thing, the season of discomfort, in this season of kind of collective anxiety? What does it look like for us to trust God enough to plant a vineyard? Now, I felt like I was going to ask you that question today and then step off and let you answer it. But if I'm going to ask you to answer it, I felt like I needed to do the work to answer it myself. So I spent some time doing that. I'm just going to share what my answer is, not because they need to be your answers, please, for the love of everything holy. They don't need to be your answers, but these are mine. These are mine. And I offer them to you as you're thinking of your own. 1, when my last breath sings the final stanza of "Oh, for 1,000 tongues to sing," which I am going to sing with my last breath on the way out, I want to leave a church that offers the only true source of life to my grandkids and to theirs. a church that speaks to them and nurtures them in the same way the church has me, even if it's in a way that I do not fully understand. I want to leave a family and a community that gives them, my grandchildren and theirs, such uncommon belonging and unconditional love, not in theory, but in lived experience, so that no matter how far they may wander, they always know that they can come back home and find love that's real love. And finally, I want to pass on a commitment to serve and to care for others above self, so that when I am dead and gone, those who come after me have learned how to use their spiritual gifts to participate in God's good kingdom, like those who came before me have showed me how to do. And if this is going to be the legacy that I am choosing to leave, then this has got to be the legacy that I choose to live. Which means that despite the discomfort with all the things that I see in front of me, of us, as little of it as I understand, I have to trust that even in the midst of it, even in the middle of it, that God can and is always doing a new thing. And so I want to work to erase the edges of my map, to embrace my own incompetence with all of the humility that I can muster. And then I want to step off the boat, build an altar to praise God, and go plant a vineyard. And I would love some company in that. Blessings on you as you wrestle with this question yourself over the course of this week, and hopefully with others that you know, love, and trust, and who know, love, and trust you. Peace.
Oh, yes, Lord. We come and worship you. I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able,
I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire, and in darkest times, you were close like no other. I've known you as a father, and I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. Oh, yes. And all my life you have been faithful. You have. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, sing, 'cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Yes, your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Yes, your goodness is running after, it's running after me.
Again, it's been great to be with you together today. I would remind you, we'd love to know you're here. If you want to text us, just text the word hello to the number that's at the bottom of your screen. We'd love to follow up with you, particularly if there are questions you have after today's worship, or if there's something we can do to help you take the next step in your life of faith, your journey. We'd love to be able to do that with you, to partner with you in that way. So don't hesitate to reach out. And again, if you'd like to join with us in mission and ministry here in Fuquay-Varina, you can go to our website, fvumc.org/give. We'd love your support. We'd love to partner with you in ministry in all sorts of different ways. We have plenty of other worshiping opportunities live on Sunday morning, as well as throughout the week. And so don't forget to hop over to our website, fvumc.org, to check out all those opportunities. We'd love to get a chance to meet you should the time come. And until then, it's been great to worship together with you today.